We're live.
Welcome to the Board of Naturopathic Medicine meeting. We'll be watching a brief video explaining how to participate in the meeting.
Welcome to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
When the meeting begins momentarily, the chair will take a roll call, explain any specific rules for this particular board, and then move to public comment. The name of the board member will appear on the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. For instance, this is board member Y, and this is board member E. Public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. You can indicate that you are ready to testify by clicking on the Raise Hand button being circled by the mouse on your screen now. At the appropriate time, the board will recognize you to speak and ask you to unmute your mic as shown here. Again, public testimony will be accepted at the beginning of the meeting and before each agenda item. Public attendees will not be able to unmute their microphone until recognized by the board. Public attendees who are recognized to testify will be asked to identify themselves by name and their affiliated organization if applicable. Please mute your microphone when you are finished speaking as a courtesy to others and members of the board. Public attendees will not be able to unmute themselves after the testimony is completed unless recognized again after raising their hand. At some point during the meeting, the board may choose to move into executive session. When the board moves into executive session, the board members' microphones and video feeds will be turned off, and a similar screen as you see now will be displayed. When the board returns from executive session, their microphones will be turned on as well as their video cameras.
Welcome again to the Professional and Vocational Licensing Virtual Board Meeting.
At this time, the chair will call the meeting to order and take a roll call, as well as explain any additional rules that may be specific to this board.
Internet access. To view the meeting and provide live oral testimony, please use the link at the top of the agenda. If you'll be asked to enter your name, the board's request that you enter your full name, but you may use a pseudonym or other identifier if you wish to remain anonymous. You will also be asked for an email address, and you may fill this field with any entry in an email format. Your microphone will be automatically muted. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may click the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen to indicate that you wish to testify about the agenda item. The chairperson will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the chairperson, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking. Phone access. If you cannot get internet access, you may get audio-only access by calling the phone number listed at the top of the agenda. Upon dialing the number, you will be prompted to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed at the top of the agenda. After entering the meeting ID, you will be asked to either enter your panelist number or wait to be admitted into the meeting. You will not have a panelist number, so please wait until you are admitted into the meeting. When the chairperson asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star, then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the chairperson, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on your phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. Once you are finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. For both internet and phone access, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 5 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If connection to the meeting is lost for more than 30 minutes, the meeting will be continued on a specific date and time. This information can be found on the board's website.
All right, thanks, Chris. We will now take our roll call. Members, when I call your name, please respond with present or here and indicate whether you are alone in your room or not. If there is someone over 18 years old in the room, please generally identify them. Vice Chair Dr. Corinne DeSoto.
Present, and I am alone.
Dr. Britta Zimmer.
Present, and I'm alone in the room.
Welcome to the board. And I, Chairperson Dr. Kristen Coles, am also present and alone in the room. I will now call the meeting to order. The time is 2:21 p.m. And we will start with item number 2, which is approval of the meeting minutes from our September 5th, 2025 meeting. Is there any attendees wishing to provide testimony?
There is no public testimony at this time, Chair.
Thanks. Members, are there any comments or corrections? Are there any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, the minutes are approved without amendments unanimously. We will move on to agenda item number 3, which is applications. Chris.
Sorry, Chair. We still, even though you're able to take the unanimous vote this in such a way, we still need a motion and a second for that.
We do still. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting?
I motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
And I
Thank you. Can
second
I get a
that.
second? Perfect. So without any objections, we will approve the minutes from the meeting without any amendments. And we will move on to agenda item number 3, applications. So we have an application list that we will review. Is there any attendee wishing to provide testimony?
There is no public testimony at this time, Chair.
May I get a motion to ratify the following applications? Do I need to read them, Chris, the names?
If you like, but you don't have to.
Okay, so we have 2 applications. Board members, we have them in our packet. Can I get a motion to ratify the applications?
I motion to ratify the applications.
I second that.
So hearing no objections, that is unanimous. We will ratify the applications. And now we can move to item number 4. And this is a review of the advisory committee member candidates. We will now review candidates for the Regulated Industries Complaints Offices, that's RICO, Psychology Advisory Committee, to become effective, no, naturopathic, right?
Sorry, Chair. Yes. I borrowed this from another agenda. My apologies.
Yeah, so that's okay. I was like, that doesn't make sense. So this would be RICO's Naturopathic Advisory Committee. And is this one to become, when is this one to become effective?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you on that comment. Sorry, Chair.
So I have a note here that it would become effective, but the date is wrong. So I don't know if I need a different date from you.
Oh, no, sorry. I checked with Rico and they're okay with the current dates on that document.
Okay. So we can, as a board, enter into an executive session to consult with the attorney if we have any questions or issues. Is there anyone present, board members, who need or would like to discuss the candidate? If so, we'll enter into executive session. Otherwise, I can get a motion to approve the candidate without naming them in this forum.
I don't need to discuss the candidate. I think she sounds like a good candidate. However, I just wanted to clarify. So this is just the position, and it looks like it's a 2-year position for if there are ever any complaints that pertain to the license of a naturopathic doctor, that then they would, like ask for this board members or appointees' opinion on what they did or our scope of practice or, anything regarding naturopathic medicine. Is that correct?
Very, I mean, that's almost correct. Yeah, the big difference is just that Yes, if Rico had a question about the practice, because they got a referral for a complaint. If it's not in the statutes or the rules, then they would need to defer to the board. However, since the board oversees settlement agreements between licensees and themselves or the state, sorry, they need a third party to review certain things. So that person being kept confidential is able to provide them insights into the field as it pertains to the statutes and rules here in Hawaii.
Thank you. That's helpful clarification. I appreciate it.
I also don't have any concerns or need to discuss the candidate. Dr. Zimmer, do you have any need to discuss?
No, I don't.
Can I get a motion to approve this candidate for Rico for the Naturopathic Advisory Committee?
I so move.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Hearing no objections, the Rico Naturopathic Advisory Committee candidate is approved unanimously. We will move on to item number 5 on our agenda, and that is legislative matters. Chris, do you want to speak on any of this for us?
I would just suggest that, as always, we do annually, we have the board appoint a member or two, to the legislative liaison, is how we describe it. We went away from the term committee, like legislative committee and such, because we didn't want it to get confused with like standing committees that the board may establish through a PIG or something like that. So, it's been changed to legislative liaison, and this person or two people would be used to refer to board decisions in the past and or at a recent board meeting for hearings when a bill is being going before a committee. So to provide say maybe an amendment or update to the testimony the board has already submitted, things like that. There's no necessary need to attend hearings, although it's always encouraged that a liaison attend if they have knowledge about that subject matter of that bill. There's certain things I just answered, or questions I just could not answer as the representative, or not the representative, but the person standing on the testimony for the board. In those instances, I usually just state I can take the question back to the board, and then we'd establish a meeting, talk about it, and then you would get a testimony back into the committee if they were still asking for it. So it is a way to kind of bridge the time between meetings when the board can actually discuss something. The testimony usually identifies this as a legislative liaison and is providing comments, and it's not a determination or like a vote within that information. It's just to provide additional insights to the board's decision, to either support or deny, those sorts of things. So in just hearing that, it can be, like I said, it can be 1 to 2 folks.
I think we've always decided on, a few individuals who will, take that on if needed. It has not been very active the past few years. So generally it's a fairly easy thing to add on. Is there any of our board members who would like to be considered for that?
Has to be among the board, correct?
Yes,
Yeah, so
correct.
the idea is that the liaison is a person representing the board,
Mm-hmm.
the members
And I
of it.
think, we do have one public member who is not present today, Joy, and I think the doctor members of the board have always liked to have at least one of us as physician members on the liaison.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've been on it in the past. I'm happy to again. I think, Corinne, you were also on it maybe last year.
So
Yeah.
maybe, like you guys have brought up, I mean, I checked yesterday and today, and I still don't see any bills introduced for naturopathic. It might be pretty quiet. That doesn't mean there might be, say, sorry, um, resolutions, which are like non-bill measures. So those could come out halfway through the session, which could involve, hearings and stuff. But as it is right now, we're leading up to bill cutoff at the end of the month. Once that happens, then there will be no more bills for the session. So that'll be when we get an idea of if there are any naturopathic bills.
I'm happy to continue as a liaison. I think in the past it was a couple of us just because sometimes it might require two brains to answer the question, but I'd be happy to continue along with somebody else.
And since we're being recorded, I'll say that I will do it next year, but I'd like to learn as a newbie for a year cycle. And so, I mean, or I can join with you this year and do it. But I think I have, a little bit of a learning curve and I'm here for the long haul. So I will be doing it.
I'll be happy to do it again. I don't mind at all.
Okay.
Okay, I will learn from these two. And then you hold me to my word, January 2027. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So do we need to make a vote? Yes, we need to vote to adjust our legislative liaisons for 2026 to Dr. Corinne DeSoto and myself, Dr. Kristen Coles. Can I get a motion?
I so move.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second.
Great. So we have legislative liaisons. Perfect. That's all we have to talk about for legislative at this point. Is that correct, Chris? There are a few things in our packet, but I didn't know if those were things for discussion.
Sorry, Chair G, can you just, I know you almost finished, but complete that vote with just saying that it was a unanimous vote or no abstentions or.
Sorry. Got it. So in regards to our legislative liaisons, there were no abstentions or objections, and it is approved unanimously.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess I can go into, well, I was looking into, I guess it's probably because it's renewal right now and I'm looking at continuing education. It was in 2019, I believe it was the association who got a bill introduced, I think it was SB 777, which would have amended the continuing education definition to include additional sources of CE. I think it made it almost to committee, or not committee, conference, and then it died. I just don't know if it was just a victim of other wheels and deals and all that stuff. I don't know if it was necessarily any opposition to the bill. When I was looking at the language, I think it could probably be cleaned up a little better, and maybe more concise, which could lead to maybe more chances of it actually passing. I think it was like the 2018, I think the board requested to see if I could make it a administrative bill. But unfortunately, because it includes substantive content, for example, it involves the acceptance of certain associations or of universities, for example, that this would need to be, this is more than just administrative. So it would have to go be an introduced bill. The thing that I was gonna try and talk with you guys about, I think moving forward with continuing education, if you're up for it, is kind of getting some better language for that definition and what you guys find is most acceptable. Just as anecdotal evidence, I guess I could bring actual data, but I would say probably about 30 to 50% of the naturopathic physicians will submit a CE that doesn't meet our requirements, not necessarily because they chose poorly, but because of who actually approved the continuing education. Was it the continuing education provider or was it a regulatory board like in Oregon? Um, the board, this board has always defined the definition of continuing education to not include regulatory boards because it does state professional associations and organizations. So for those courses that were approved by, say, the Oregon Board of Naturopathic Medicine, obviously to some degree quality, the HSMP was came in as a third party, not associated with the board, to provide state approvals, state association approvals to those courses. Then this was a system sort of built as a band-aid to fix what was obviously usable CE. It just couldn't because the definition itself is limiting. So again, going back, I think the definition can be simplified, which I think provides maybe a better chance of legislators being more comfortable with a bill because it's not taking a lot of knowledge. It's spelled out in a clear, concise knowledge. So the areas that bill SB 777 touched on were the standard association based CE. I think it included schools of naturopathic medicine. I think that language could probably be cleaned up a little better, so we are certain that it's coming from one of our accredited universities that we accept. And not necessarily something somewhere like, say, New Zealand or something like that. I'd be happy to provide you guys some of the notes that I have and in preparing for the end of May, or preparing for the meeting in May. And that's a lot of time for us to try and get something going. And that certainly would provide the board and the association an entire year for this specific type of bill, if anybody wishes to push that forward. I do know that I do have to send multiple deficiencies or just refer to RICO because they just didn't meet the requirements of renewal. I'm referring to licensed naturopathic physicians. That doesn't necessarily mean that somebody gets deemed, because sometimes they just get HSMP to approve it, or it was already approved, they just forgot to send that document in or whatnot. So even if RICO gets involved, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a violation that will end up happening. So it's just I think it's better just to have CE for naturopathic physicians that represents what they're doing. So and where they can take legitimate CE from. So that's kind of all I have for the continuing education type legislative work. I know we talked pretty extensively in the last two meetings about the incorporation of controlled substances, specifically testosterone, into the formulary. And honestly, that language was I think it was a little bit cleaner. I think the difficult thing is just it touches on several or at least two chapters in Hawaii revised statutes. And those have to work in concert together. And I think bills need to be clear how that's working for legislators to be more comfortable with that.
Can I ask clarifying questions? Sorry. Thank you, Chris, and all of you guys for all your effort renewing all our licenses, because I know that's hard when they all have to be done manually. And this is sort of good timing because we're talking right now also about the CE approval process with HSNP. And as we're bringing on new association management in HSNP, finding that the requests for CE approvals is like it's not very scalable, and there quite a few of them. And my question for you was, if you could give us just a little bit of background on how the language was developed for our continuing education bill when that was added, and why it was written the way it was, that in a way that like excludes quite a few number of approving organizations, CE approving organizations. And if that's not something that we maybe want to readdress, if we're going to clean this language up too and try and model it after some of the other some of the other laws in the other states.
I think that so as far as how that when CE program began, I think it was 2017. I couldn't really say why it got, say, we'll call it in these terms, restricted down to what it is. I'll have to look for that for the May meeting. But I do know that the board does have authority to approve the approvers of CE. It's very hard to, like, if you're trying to describe that to just your everyday person, it's very hard to describe the approve and approver. So it's a double approval. Which means that other associations, professional associations and organizations related to naturopathic could be approved by the board, and they do. You guys have a list of currently approved. The thing that the definition totally cuts out are regulatory bodies like there's the FNMRA, and I'm not sure, I think they might even have, in relation, they might have CE, I think NANCIAC. It cannot be accepted, which is a big one. That's the accrediting body. So there's just these large gaps that for some reason was excluded. My experience with legislation is that if it's not already known, then there's an assumption that it shouldn't be there sometimes. So in some cases, like I think it might have even been this bill, it was talking about the accreditation of the universities or whatever at some point, and there were United States accredited schools, but then there's also Canada schools. So it said state or provincial accredited, yes, such and such. I had a legislator ask, why is provincial in here? We don't have provinces. And so it's just a matter of being able to explain quickly and clearly why that would be there. And a whole bill could be just derailed because they saw province and they didn't understand that we have a relationship with Canada as far as accreditation and stuff. So
yeah.
So it's just these minor details that can go into like the description of the bill that maybe can better teach the legislator, or kind of not orient them, I shouldn't say teach, but orient them to the matter.
Okay. I guess my question, and you brought up NANCIAC, is sort of actually specifically related to them, because at this point, so many other state boards are moving to just allow, so NANCIAC is like now covers accreditation for so many different continuing education courses, and the state boards are accepting it. And so, whoever is delivering the continuing education now only needs to go to NANCIAC and isn't needing to get the individual board approval from each state. And so since that's now becoming standard in other places, I was just wondering if there's a way for us to kind of follow the trend of what's happening with the other regulatory boards in CE and other states.
Yeah, that's certainly in other areas, in other professions, we've had, for example, in psychology, school psychology try to be introduced, trying to be added to the board. And they provide a lot of evidence that say a number of states are starting to license school psychologists in a certain way, and we should get on the same page or something like that. One thing I've taken away from that process is giving the actual data. So knowing the number of states that are accepting NANCIAC and having that already. knowing that there is a trend, like for example, showing the most recent states that accepted are amended to accept Nancy Act. So then it might even, it might touch on a legislator who has a relationship with another state legislator in that state. And so you never know how things can get tied together. But I definitely think if you see a trend happening, then that's something that should be brought up. The association usually should, can bring somebody in to say, hey, we're noticing this. Can we get the board support on that? And then you guys can reply whether or not you do. And that's kind of how we get this ball rolling. And having the regulators, having the association, having public interest, all of these things, obviously, I know some of you have been around the block with legislation for a long time, so you get all these parts into play and it can help. But it still comes down to substantive content and not administrative. So I don't think that my administrator would allow it to go into a governor's administrative bill request.
Okay, thanks. That's so helpful. And so just so I'm clear, you're already suggesting that we maybe introduce a bill to kind of update and clarify the language and make it a little bit cleaner regardless. And then, we can explore what other adjustments we might want to pursue at that time.
I mean, I guess I'm recommending that if the board, hearing what I'm saying about my sort of anecdotal report about renewals and how a lot of them get deferred or we cannot accept SCE, that if the board wishes to go forward with that, they should talk with the association. And yeah, we have, I think, grounds. I think the board and the association, if they came together, would have some really good language to be able to introduce a bill next year.
Okay. Great.
And
we will bring that up.
What you're also saying is that we as the board cannot introduce a bill because it probably won't fit under the classification. We have to have HSNP to bring the bill. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to affect the profession, then it doesn't have to be the association. It could be any public person or organization. Just the board would stay out of an introduction of a bill that's substantive like that. You guys would handle the administrative side of things. So, as far as like deadlines, like you within like 60 days, they have to have after January 1st. Like that's the hard cutoff or something like that. Then that might be something that you could introduce in an administrative way. Because that would cut down on like either violations or maybe give more incentive for people to, do things on time according to our administrative practices. So that's a little different than saying now we accept NANCIAC. So
yeah. I feel like there was a time several years ago when, as the board, a few different bodies were brought to our attention as sort of the board approving them. Is that correct?
You mean currently right now you guys approve? Or are you talking about something you would consider to put in a bill?
So this is a vague recollection because this would have been either 2018 or 2019, way pre-COVID, when the board, we had discussions about certain bodies that provide CE that we as the board approved by name. Am I correct in my recollection that we have the ability to do that?
Yes. So the definition of continuing education includes language that says, professional organizations and associations related to the field of naturopathic medicine, provided that the approver is approved by the board, basically. I'm sorry, I'm paraphrasing, but it's so because it says provided the board approves, that gives you guys the authority to then choose who fits within that definition. So I think it was the Holistic Dental Association. I think that was 2020 or 2019, something like that. It was the one and only association while I've been here that made a request to be added as an approved, CE provider. And yeah.
I also think there was one regarding
Oh yeah, you're right.
there was one regarding um addiction disorders there that's my I have
Yeah.
I have this recollection of having that discussion, but again, I'm so sorry, this was so many years ago.
Yeah.
So what my question here is there a valid reason that in the May meeting we should have on our agenda other bodies to approve as the board for naturopaths in the state that would sort of help this situation before we can get the bill done?
Um, there's certainly, I think the way it's designed, or at least it was in the past, was that, so for example, this Holistic Dental Association, they actually didn't make the first request to be approved. It was the licensed naturopathic physician who wished to use the CE. But it was at that time that we informed him that he had to have the association make the request. So unless you guys have associations or organizations that are ready to make a request with the content and information the board would need to make an assessment whether they should approve, then I wouldn't necessarily put anybody on the agenda. Because if you're just talking about, oh, we like them, we should approve them, I think we need to have something to approve first. So you can always reach out to them and say, the board's looking for additional, CE providers. You meet our requirement, provided that we approve you. So you can always do that, reach out to
I mean, would that be a helpful thing for us to do for our members and for licensees?
I mean, maybe for 2028, or sorry, the end of 2027, then it could be good. I mean, it would give additional stuff. I think Dr. DeSoto really hit it on the head though. It's like Nanciac is like this big one. And luckily, most times those are usually provided by, say, like some other state association as well. So it's like a joint CE. So I can still approve it, but it would make it a lot easier if Nanciac was just, in that definition.
We can't approve that as a board.
Because it's not well, right now the board is functioning off the interpretation back then, which was that the definition refers to a professional association or organization. And at that time, I think the board had said that, or not the board, but it had been noted that a professional association promotes the profession. And has members. I think there were other additional criteria. And this is, I think, what maybe you were thinking about, Dr. Coles, was there is a naturopath, I think on Big Island, who wanted to create an association in order to provide CE. And so he made a submission. The board denied the submission because I think there was a couple notes, like it was a competing association for the state association.
That's not what I'm thinking of. I do recall that though.
Okay. But yeah, the board came up with a criteria at that time for what constitutes the association. So an accrediting body could challenge that. Yeah, I think, and at that time and that was how it was considered. Challenge that would be right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So.
Yeah, I would just, while you were talking, just to remind myself, looked up the Nanciac definition. And I think what you're saying is right, is that Nanciac was created by FNMRA, which is a regulatory authority. And that's like the whole issue, is that the language in the bill didn't allow regulatory authorities, correct?
Correct, yeah.
However, I can tell you right now, that there's a great number of states who are automatically accepted NANCIAC. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 so far.
Yeah. I think, and again, that is something that would be included in like testimony, in support, if they wanted to be included.
Yeah.
And that's a lot different than saying like, nothing against Holistic Dental Association, but it's a lot different, that aspect compared to NANCIAC, which also, again, like noted that importantly, is tied to FNMRA, which is the national regulatory body for naturopathic medicine. So, yeah, that would be a good addition. And I think it was in the language for SB 77. Let me just double check. No, actually, that would be something that you would probably want to put. It looks like this bill only introduced a state naturopathic licensing board. So not at the national level, but only the state level. So that could probably be modified. And then also the university, college, or institution of naturopathic medicine program accredited by the Council on Naturopathic Medicine Education or the Accreditation Council on Continuing Medical Education. So CNME or CNME or ACCME, sorry. My life is in a lot of acronyms. Sorry about that.
I can only imagine. Okay, so you're saying still we can't just add it. We have to do it legislatively.
Well, I don't know. That's something that you guys can continue to discuss. Are you asking if the board should, or not it should, are you asking if the board can look again at this determination of what is a professional association or organization, or?
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, do we have the capability to kind of look over that definition again and see if we can just update it as a board to be more in line with what's happening today for standard of practice for continuing education for naturopathic doctors everywhere, and not what was the standard in 2017 or 2016 rather, probably, when this bill was going through the legislative process. I'm wondering if we have the capability ourselves just to put in whatever we need to do in order to update it to make it easier for our members, but also easier for DCCA to do license renewals as well. Now that we're all aware of this common problem that people have getting their renewals just due to the confusion about what kind of CE counts and what doesn't.
Right. What would you need in order to prepare for a discussion?
I think I would want to look at the legislative history for when this definition was added and to see if there was any, I don't know, testimony or committee notes that noted why it was defined this way as far as the definition for continuing education. And if it's broad enough, if there's like an argument to be made that, as drafted, it could include something like the organizations that you discussed, but I think it would have to be, I think we're already kind of skirting a line and that would have to be agendized, I think, before we kind of do a deep dive. I know it hasn't really been agendized for this particular one, so I think we're kind of skirting a line.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I'd want to know, I guess, why it was defined that way and whether the legislature had a purpose for, characterizing this way, because ultimately that's what someone would challenge it would rely on as well.
So let me see if I can kind of distill this a little. So if, when it was introduced and passed, the continuing education program for naturopathic physicians, if there was not testimony or committee reports referring to a distinction between professional association or organization and say a regulatory body like FNMRA or their accrediting bodies, which are still tied to the profession in a intimate way, there could potentially be grounds for the board consider like regulatory bodies or accrediting bodies that are directly related to naturopathy.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it ultimately comes down to how it's worded. So, I mean, that's what courts will always rely on. But if it's ambiguous, that's when you go into like legislative history or things like that. Cursory review of the language, it's hard to tell like what, why it was, so specifically worded to, professional association or organization, things like that. But
and I think another thing that I always it feels like the force of that definition is on the term approved. So sometimes I look at other professions and their definition of CE, and it seems to be tied more to the content. So then it's more you're labeling the association, national association, for example. So psychology states that continuing education are courses accredited by APA or state associations, and that's it. That's a little bit more focused on the content of what those providers give, as opposed to saying, well, yeah, the board approved them or not. And so then it feels a little less like gatekeeping and more focused on what you can achieve out of that CE, So I think I've always had a kind of issue with the way that's written, and it's also kind of a little bit confusing. So, and I think that's only confusing because they try to allow additional associations associated with naturopathic medicine to be able to also contribute continuing education to the licensing body, the body of naturopathic physicians. So it's very vague in a sense that way.
So I'm a lay person, obviously, in regards to the practice of naturopathic medicine and stuff. But are you saying that, because I'm reading the definition and it says continuing education courses mean courses approved by a professional association. So that's what you're saying is distinguishable from like a regulatory body, or apparently that's what this board, or I don't know, whoever interpreted it that way. But it says, or organization representing a licensed profession whose program objectives are related to naturopathic medicine. Is that also similarly?
I think the way that when we had Chris here, he was saying that when it says professional association and organization, that's together, and that it's not professional association and then organization.
I see. Yeah.
And that's the confusing part about it. Like I'm not really sure. I think we really would need the legislative history.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so we can
So
maybe add it to our next agenda then to discuss it more formally.
Yeah. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Whose role is it to look into the legislative history so we can have more information?
Any member can look it up. If you're not familiar, Dr. Zimmer, I can always give you a little bit of information about, because there's a lot, but a little bit of information to get started on the legislative website, which is where you would get most of the information. If you know, then that's really where you're going to find it.
Okay.
And you can go as far back, I think, as 2012 or 13, so it's well within the range.
Okay.
For you to find it.
Great. I'll reach out and try to get information on how to access that.
I forgot something else that I think should be introduced for all boards, but in naturopathic too, especially as you guys maybe even grow licensing numbers, is to introduce a audit of CE, not just 100% review. I know that would help us administratively, but in the general, it just is, I think, the way that best practices is to just draw a pool out of a sample, and then get it done. But I forgot to add that in.
Yeah, my understanding, that's how the chiropractic board has done it for some time now.
Yeah, it's because they have legislative language in their renewal section that allows for them to audit.
Mhm.
So it's usually like a 5 or a 10% audit. It doesn't necessarily have to have that in the law, but that's usually what PVL does a draw from. It's about 5 to 10%.
I agree that would be great for you guys, and I think it has to be coupled with this improvement in the CE process, because as you just stated, maybe 50% of the renewals are, getting kicked back because, or the applications are getting kicked back because of a deficiency in the CE.
Well, I should be more specific that they're not necessarily getting kicked back. It's just that they usually have more additional CE that I can take. So, so those who really stick to the 35 and 15, they're really cutting it close unless they went to, HSMP's doc talks and all that stuff, then it's like really solid. So, yeah, it's just a matter of where you're drawing from, maybe how much money you have to achieve that. And so, another additional thing the board might consider with CE is maybe the consideration of limiting, courses to those courses that are like 50 minutes and above. Because I do get a lot of 0.25 courses. Again, you can imagine 300 pages of one person's CE coming in at 0.25, for 35 credits. I understand why they're doing it, but it can be maybe problematic to the quality of the course, but maybe what they can get out of it and what you guys most importantly believe would protect the public the best. So, I mean, that's just something to consider. I know, like I said, I know a lot of naturopaths really have to cut the corners to find those courses that they can fill their hours with. So, I understand. But
Okay, that's worth considering. I never thought about that before, so thanks for that.
yeah, calculating 0.25 or 0.25. Yeah, yeah, it's a lot, but
Slightly off related, but off topic. Is it possible to do online renewals? Because I think some of the problem too is this, like that people have to get their renewal application mailed to them, and if anyone moves or changes address, then that creates a problem as well. I know there's been several people who've reached out to me about that, and if I can help them out.
yeah. So there's several boards and programs who have in their law, I guess, I don't know if it was in their law or it's just the way they were established, didn't include the requirement of an email address. So there are a lot of licensees in naturopathic who don't have that in their accounts. So if we tried to run an online, we wouldn't be able to notify everyone. But most importantly, they wouldn't have access to the my PVL account. So I think I need to look back into that though, because that was over 2 or 3 years ago when we started an initiative to try and request folks submit their emails. But I need to look into this more because naturopathic has been limited to hard copy renewals because of this reason, at least partly. So I need to find out if that still holds. I know our administrator is really pushing for everything to go online. So I think I can maybe get some administrative support to try and help this happen. But if it requires statutory change again, then again, we're at that stage. But yeah, I can reach out to our administrator about it and then hopefully give you guys some more information in May.
That'd be great. I think that would make this whole process smoother for all parties as well. Thank you.
And so we could have one bill regarding CE that would include all of these components.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I brought something. So sometimes folks can use like exams, for example, for CE, maybe if it's close to when they were first licensed, stuff like that. But I also recognize that there's now a parenteral therapy exam that's provided by the exam provider. Currently, we cannot accept it because we can only accept a course taught in their university or a course approved by the board. So a statutory change would to include the exam for parenteral would also probably streamline licensure a little bit quicker as well. If someone, because I see a lot of people now with the exams, they're taking the parenteral course. So, or the exam. So they would either qualify through their university or that exam.
I think we would just have to look into the requirements of being able to sit for the exam, mostly because I know off the top of my head, at least one of the universities doesn't teach parenteral therapy as part of their course.
Okay.
So we would have to just make sure that that the requirement to sit for the exam ensures that they actually had training.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the exam doesn't, in and of itself, I would want to know that a course has been passed.
Okay. So there's more discussion to be had on this for sure.
Yeah,
But
mainly we need to start just by knowing what the qualifications are to be able to take that portion of the exam of the NPLEX.
do you want me to reach out to them and ask? Okay.
If you can, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, I can do that.
Do we need a motion to request agenda items for May, or we have those on there?
Actually,
Okay.
Chair, you can ask for something on there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
As the chair, you can ask for something to be agendized.
Okay, so I think we'd like to request the agenda item in May to reflect further information as to the board's ability to potentially add regulatory bodies as potential CE providers that would be accepted. And then do we need another agenda item for further bill language for a CE introduction?
I could probably draft a agenda item that meets both. But I can throw it by you and Jordan before the meeting so that we can make sure it touches on each thing you guys would like to see.
That would be great. Are we, let's see, do I need a roll call to finish this agenda item and moving on, or? Okay. So we can move on to the next agenda item, which is our next meeting date. That is Friday, May 1, 2026, 2 p.m.
Can I
And
request that we explore another date?
Okay.
I will not be able to attend that day.
Is there any way we could maybe try and do that right now?
Yeah.
yes. Is there anything we need to do about that, or can we just discuss?
You could just let us know, like, I'm gonna bring up the calendar. Do you mind pulling up the Courtney's gonna pull up the meeting calendar to make sure the rooms are available. And, so if we can maybe stick to a date that's close to, like, maybe a Friday, and is close to that date.
Can we explore Friday the 8th?
We can. It works as far as room availability.
We don't have any meetings as well, you and I.
Okay, yeah, both her and I don't have any other meetings.
Works for me.
It'd be fine for me.
Great.
This is the first time I've done it this way, and I really appreciate it.
So I'm going to make an updated announcement that our next meeting date is Friday, May 8th, 2026 at 2 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance. Thank you to our new member, Dr. Zimmer. We appreciate your time. And I will adjourn our meeting. It is 3:16 p.m. and we will see everyone in May.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.